Welcome to Coffee and Conversation. My name is Honorine, and today I'm with Stephen Williams, who is pursuing a PhD in educational psychology. Stephen, welcome and thank you for being with me today.
Thank you, Honorine. I'm happy to be here with you. Thank you for the invitation.
Can we start with an introduction from you?
Sure. So as you stated, my name is Stephen Williams. I am a first-year PhD student in the educational psychology program, the learning and cognition specialty over in the College of Education at FSU. I am from Tampa, Florida, so I am a Florida native. In the past, I attended Florida A&M University, where I received a Bachelor's of Science degree in economics with a minor in business. And I also received a Master's of Science in community psychology from FAMU as well. So I'm happy to start this new journey. It's definitely been challenging so far, the doctoral pursuit, but I'm glad to be here.
So why the switch from economy to educational psychology?
Right. So I've always had an interest in economics. That's what my background has been in, different financial literacy concepts, wealth attainment, just different things regarding economics, the distribution of resources. All of that has always interested me. So I did go on to get my bachelor's in that when I was an undergraduate. And, after that, I kind of worked I worked in corporate America for a while in the finance sector at different Fortune 500 companies. And I just started seeing different things in the community where, a lot of issues were going on as far as wealth management, different financial literacy, education. I just saw a lot of things, and that kind of prompted me to dig deeper, right? I wanted to understand more, like what was causing these issues, what was not allowing these issues to be solved, what are different things that we can do to kind of address those things. So I did go back to FAMU to get a master's in community psychology. So I started thinking that, all right, there's maybe something innate, like inside of us or within, that's kind of contributing to different challenges. So that's why I went the psychology route. And boy, did that really open my eyes to a lot of things, especially because that program specifically, it specializes in Black psychology. So it's the only program in the nation that has that specialty. So I really start to connect the dots between economics and psychology, with that specialized population. So it was, so to answer your question, just, life experience, just seeing different challenges in the community and wanting to help contribute to solving them. That's what kind of helped me make that switch, or at least continue on the line of inquiry.
And have you regretted that choice? Because there is a big difference between being in the work field and being a student, especially we're talking about finance, financially, right. Especially when you go from corporate America to being a graduate student, there is a difference.
Absolutely, there is a difference. I can honestly say that my moves were a little strategic. So when I entered corporate America, I actually was living home for a while. So that allowed me to save a lot and to make different financial investments. So when it was time for me to go back to school, I wasn't, of course, I was like, the typical grad student, you don't have abundance of resources, but I wasn't as, I guess, worse off, if that makes sense, because I had those other resources to help sustain me. So it was quite a difference, but, I still enjoyed the space because I was learning things that I previously hadn't, before. And I started to see myself contribute to the communities in ways that was satisfying. So yeah, it was a difference, but it was worth it.
Great. So I see that, as you said, you had prepared for that shift. And is it something that, you want to prepare other people to do? Is it one of your mission?
Absolutely. That is something, because, a lot of times people don't like to go to school. They, avoid going to college because of, the potential hardship that follows it, as far as financially. But I think there's a way to do it. I try to not allow individuals to be discouraged with going to college, especially if they're like in high school, or, I have a lot of, cousins and just different other community members that's coming up behind me, and grade school, and they're hearing a lot of things in the media about you don't have to go to college and stuff, but it's very important. I think if you have a strategic plan, you definitely can have your education but be set afterwards. And I think that, of course, my process wasn't perfect, but that is something I would like to contribute in the long run, especially because economics, that's just a passion of mine. It's something that I can't turn off. So whatever that looks like, definitely would like to, help give back in that way.
So for a person who's watching us right now, who is working, thinking about grad school, but also thinking I can't afford it, you just said there is a way to do it, and you have to be strategic. So for this person watching, what would you tell that person in a way that, yes, you can do it, but what is the strategy?
Well, I think it just depends on that person's situation. There are different strategies that people can take in order to be well off, or at least to be comfortable while in school, and to kind of set themselves up afterwards. It just kind of depends. It depends on the resources that you have access to. It depends on the institution that you want to go to, right? Because we know that the cost of tuition is different. Between institutions, different regions of the country or the world. So I would say first to not to be open-minded. So when I say that, there isn't one set way of doing things. Everyone's journey is different, right? Just because your journey or someone else's journey looks different than yours doesn't mean that you're not, doing the right thing. So what I mean by that, a lot of times there's this negative connotation about moving home after college, right? But a lot of times that's strategic because you're able to save or do other things with your money that you're making, into the workforce that other people may not be, able to do at that time. So just being open-minded with little small things like that, and to kind of increase your knowledge, right? Find out ways to invest, find out ways, what you can do with your money other than, or in addition to it being in a savings account, right? There's so many things that we can do, or even partner with different people to, do different things to kind of, put you ahead and, your community as well. So it just depends on the person, the situation they're in, the access to resources they have, and that's not to say like when you're moving home that you're not going to be paying bills or anything like that. It just depends on the arrangement you have with, your loved ones or whoever you'll be living with if you decide to do that. That's what I mean by it looks differently. So just being open-minded and being able to take chances, right? Take a chance, do something different because it may be beneficial to you in the long run, because it was for me.
I love what you're saying, because I've started my own financial journey a few years ago. And as a graduate student, so as you said, it's possible to not be a broke graduate student when you're smart with your money. And
Right,
it's very important to get educated. I was not educated in terms of my financial journey. Um,
right,
and I love what you say about, finding ways to invest. That's my next step, because right now I have money saved, but I keep reading and watching videos about you have to invest because your money and your saving is useless. But
right.
it's scary. I'm scared
Yeah,
right now to do that.
yeah, it is. Yeah, you're right. It's definitely scary sometimes, but I think there are ways that when we continue to educate ourselves, we can make passive strides to doing that. Something that may not be as risky, that'll kind of meet your comfort level. You know what I mean? Even like when I started, I think when I graduated in the undergrad, and of course I'm not a financial advisor or anything like that, but something that I did do was the different retirement accounts that I started to kind of contribute to, like the IRA, Roth IRA and things like that. Those are very passive ways where it doesn't take much for you to invest, right? You can do as little as you want. Essentially you can do $5, $10, $100, whatever you can afford. And, it builds on each other over time. The important thing is that you're developing those habits to be able to, when you have access to larger resources, then you'll be able to essentially do the same thing, but on a different level, if that makes sense. You're able to scale up. So Yeah, it's a process, but I think the more we speak about it, it takes away the sting of investing or just building wealth in general because it's something that is talked about. Look, everyone says we need to do this, but very little tools on how to do it, especially with younger generations. So, uh,
Yes, I
yeah,
100% agree with you. Like
yeah.
you're right with the Roth IRA. I opened one and
Oh, nice.
I put 10% of my graduate salary, which is
Great.
little,
Yeah,
but
that's
now, like, 4 years later, I'm like, oh, it's not that little. When you
right.
add up every month, and I feel like the most important thing is to be consistent. And as you said, building good habits of
Yeah.
starting to, you have a salary and budget everything. And there is always room for saving. Might not be much, but in the long run, it adds up, and you do have a good amount.
Absolutely. I agree. Absolutely, for sure.
And so, what is your research project? So I know you're just starting, so you might not have one already, but maybe what do you have in mind?
Yeah, so it's nothing solidified yet because I am just starting, but I like to think my research in general is like the nexus of economics, psychology, and education. So, we've been speaking about wealth, and generally, when we think about, or at least when I think about wealth, you think about leaving resources for our families and communities that's coming behind us, right? So research actually does show that there are tremendous and persistent racial differences in wealth, which has kind of helped shape a increasing wealth gap. So unfortunately, the median wealth for families among African descent in particular is going to be zero. It's going to fall to zero by year 2053 if that trend continues. So I've committed my research agenda towards utilizing my skills in economics, psychology, and education to help contribute towards, closing that gap. So as we kind of mentioned before, building wealth, those are things that I think starts from within, right? Wealth just doesn't happen. It's some type of process internally that starts to influence a person to behave certain ways or just do things that will kind of help them build wealth. So that's what my research, I think, is going to begin to start to look at. So after conversing with my advisor over the last few weeks, I'm starting to think about just what happens internally with wealth, right? What are the different attitudes? What are the values or beliefs that influence behavior towards building wealth? So my goal is, by understanding that, then we can possibly create some type of culturally relevant intervention that can better assist individuals in building wealth, right? Because we know different communities, different family, there are so many culturally different things, right? Everyone's culture is different. So I think having interventions that are culturally relevant, we may better help, support that initiative and obtaining wealth. And then, more importantly, giving back to our generation of being able to help set, those that are coming behind us. So that's what I'm thinking about, the direction I may want to go with the research. Of course, it's not set in stone, but I think that's the route we're probably going to go.
Yeah, it sounds like a fascinating project. You started earlier saying that you're in your first year, but you've already encountered some challenges. Could you tell us about it?
Yeah, so as I guess anyone would expect, a doctoral program is very rigorous. It calls for a lot. So I think just the challenges that I've experienced so far is basically managing different things at one time. I've had experience with that in the past, but there's just so much more expected at the doctoral level than the master, if that makes sense. So I'm adjusting to the workload and just being able to navigate through this pandemic space because it's still a challenge, even though we're in probably like the second year or something like that now. It's still a challenge because my courses are virtual at this time. So, there's not much human interaction, physical interaction right now. So being able to still perform in classes and being able to, just have a balanced schedule, I think that's been challenging because it can't be your entire life. It's a lot of, it's most of your life, but you have to have some balance. And I think figuring out what that looks like at this stage in my education has been challenging. But we're definitely figuring it out for sure. Because I know I'm not in this space alone. There's other individuals that are kind of navigating through those challenges too. So, just being open and honest and conversing with different people about what works for them, things that they're working on, what things that they can do better. It's definitely helped me, which is why I appreciate platforms like this, because it helps us to kind of normalize the process, so to speak. So
Oh, yes. I mean, I'm in my fourth year struggling.
yeah,
So it's,
challenging.
I'm not surprised to hear that you are struggling in your first year. And the reason why I ask is not to put you on the spot, but it's more, as you said, is to share
Mhm.
and to normalize it. Because I noticed that, we're all in the same struggles, but no one talks about it.
Yeah.
I heard about the imposter syndrome in my third year, but I had been feeling that syndrome for 2 years already. And I was like, how come no one's talk about it? It
Right.
seems like everybody is feeling it, but everybody is also ashamed to talk about it. But everybody is feeling it, so we should just
Mhm.
share. And it's
Yeah.
actually by sharing that you feel better and you're like, oh, okay, I'm not alone. Like, because I
Mhm.
thought you were so smart, but you also feel that. And like, yeah.
Oh, of course, yeah, absolutely. It's challenging, and I feel like, like you said, if we just share more with each other, this process doesn't have to be as hard as it has been, especially for like individuals that have come through, their programs and graduated, and to go on to do great things. The connotation behind pursuing a PhD, yes, it's going to be rigorous, it's going to require a lot, but I feel like once we start having more of these honest conversations, it won't be um, as challenging, so to say. I know it's still going to be a challenge, but certain challenges may not be as significant, if that makes sense.
For sure. My last question for you is, so I usually say, how do you picture yourself in 5 years? But in 5 years, you might still be a graduate. So I'm going to add a couple years. How do you picture yourself in 7 years from today?
7 years. So I definitely see myself utilizing my skills, training, and experiences to conduct research, right? Research that's practically action oriented, because I'm very big on doing research, but taking it to the communities, right? It needs to be practiced. I don't want to do research for the sake of doing it. We need to somehow, do a better job with disseminating it to the communities. That way we can actually, practice it. So being in some space where I can do that, and being able to just offer full service educational solutions to communities that are experiencing different adverse challenges, for me, as it pertains economics and probably psychology as well. Just whatever issues that are going on and ways that I can contribute based on my skill set. I think that's where I see myself. So I'm not sure what institution I'd be working with, at that time. Definitely will have my own personal agency to come to some capacity, being able to contribute in that way. But we'll see. That's definitely down the line, but it's a great thing to start thinking about now, because that's going to help shape your motives now and put you in places to be able to kind of actualize some of that stuff. So definitely see myself, doing research, practicing my research in the community, and just being able to help contribute in solving some of these issues. And I do know that it's not going to be a lone surge. Like, I want to be able to work with other people doing this, because these types of issues you can't do alone, and you actually shouldn't, because then you're not really considering other differences, other cultural differences, things that are important, right? You have to work together with things like this. So I definitely see myself being a part of a great team, addressing some of these issues.
Are you thinking like in academic environments or more the work field?
Um, I see myself actually in both. I definitely see myself in the academy, because that's where we're going to be able to access some of these great, resources to do research and on a robust level. So I do see myself in academia, but at the same time, I want to have an equal, if not larger, presence in the community as well. That way, I can, be in the community, because that's very important to me. So I see myself equally, both having my feet in both spaces for sure, because it's needed.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I found our conversation inspiring.
Oh,
And I
thank
love
you.
that we didn't stick to, kind of like research, but we went also in the financial aspect that can help many viewers and maybe help them go into their own financial journey.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I appreciate the time, Honorine. It's been great. Been very refreshing conversation. A lot of times, we get stuck in the rabbit ways going, going at this level, and being able to just speak about the things you're working on has been refreshing. So definitely appreciate this space. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.